Hello.
Sandy.
How are
Welcome.
you?
Welcome.
Welcome, Sandy. What a joy to have you and VMware here at the Ecosystem Business Summit. This, as you know, is a community of ecosystem practitioners who've just gathered. We share best practices in this session. So first, let me introduce you properly to the whole community. I'm so excited about this session with Sandy. She's Senior VP Worldwide Commercial and Partner Sales, leads a very high energy team that's building one of the best world-class partner ecosystems and really on the generating explosive growth there with that ecosystem strategy. And how VMware is literally the fabric with which modern multi-cloud is happening through so many different partners. So she's at the thick and thin of those things with a larger ecosystem. The other thing that has struck me about Sandy is that she's very passionate and curious about finding new cutting edge solutions that drive joint partner sales, grow their audience, but think win-win, if you will, with a larger partner ecosystem. But such a change is not easy. She's an amazing change driver, which we'll get into. And I know a lot of you are thinking about this change from transactions to collaborative relationships. There's no better expert on that topic than Sandy. So with that, and I think just a quick thing here, like a lot of us, she's into golf. And so ask her for a round of golf, probably the fast track to starting partnerships there. And what a nice Masters recently, Sandy. We had a winner who's just about 25 years old, right? Did you follow that?
I did very intently. And what's interesting is there's so much that went on at the Masters that obviously was very public. And then what some people don't even realize, especially if you watched the last day, and you watched the 18th hole of Rory and Morikawa, they both chipped in from the sand trap. But what's more interesting is Morikawa, who's a very young, I think he's 23, that chip in made him come in 5th for the Masters. He's come in the top 5 in all 4 majors.
Wow.
And I think he's one of the youngest professionals to do that. And of course, what made it so captivating was, Tiger always seems to make a headline. And that was a different kind of headline, right? Because, the world didn't think he would ever play again. He almost lost his leg. And to see that is inspiration enough to know, like, when you have your heart set on something, anything is possible.
Yeah. And Scotty being just 25 and being #1 in the world, that's also amazing to see. And many ecosystem leaders that I'm seeing, a lot of young generation of people coming into this profession. There's a lot of parallels between, Mary was talking about skating to where the puck is going. And you're literally talking about golf and how every stroke kind of brings new possibilities. That's awesome. Yeah, let's get right to it. You've been leading a movement within VMware from transactions to more collaborative partnerships with partners and customers. You've been transitioning and actually expanding from channel to a larger ecosystem strategy. So can you go behind the scenes a little bit and tell us, what is it?
Sure. And I think it's important to note, our transition, I don't view this as just a VMware transition. I think it is all of our transition that we're experiencing, and we're all coming at it from different angles. I think it's really most important that at the heart of all of this discussion and, this new buzzword around ecosystem is that it's around customers and customers' expectations that are changing and evolving. And it's frankly putting much more demand on things like as a service models. So I think in the tech space, we have to really remind ourselves of that, because cloud is not the objective. AI is not the objective. Many companies are talking about SaaS transition. VMware's right in the heart of it. That's not what the objectives are for the customers. Those are all enablers. And, I think we're moving much more quickly into something that I believed in for, much more than a decade, is this whole outcomes as a service notion. And so when you really think about it that way, it's whatever you provide, whatever we provide as a collective set of partners, it's ultimately what outcome does it deliver? And then in the future, the partner will only pay for the outcome that's delivered. And, listening to Mary and the world of Deloitte, they live in that world, obviously from a consulting standpoint. Now imagine that required at all levels in a life cycle. And so everything around that requires all of us to move up the stack. So a few key themes that have emerged for us as we've evaluated our ecosystem strategy. One is clearly the customer piece. Second is, managed services has had a terminology for a long time, right? And managed services is taking on a whole new life of how moving up the stack, moving up the value stack, I should say, not the technology stack, the value stack, and how to make capabilities more turnkey. People are lacking the talent, the capabilities, et cetera. And what we have really had to wake up to is, excuse me, recognizing customer life cycle. When I walked into the job 2 years ago, sorry, I have a really bad cough. When I walked into VMware 2 years ago, 96% of all of our investments, our resourcing was focused on the transaction. And we're still heavily weighted on the transaction. So while I appreciate the wonderful compliments, we're right in the crux of this transformation. And I think there's another industry disruptor that's changing the landscape as well around lifecycle is marketplaces. You brought it up earlier. Marketplaces are both an emerging force for all of us, meaning it is going to disrupt resell and the way we think about resell. And it's also a force multiplier, a new way of bringing unique IP and services and solutions into the market in a much more scalable and quick way. So think about the magnitude of that. And so everything about our ecosystem now, where it used to be product, services attached, is now all around value services led.
Wow.
That in and of itself is a complete disruptor in how you think about going to market. And a really big wake up call for us continues to be that it's no longer a linear motion. And this notion of account control, customer control, I would venture to say no longer exists.
Wow.
And the required specialization of each of us, yet at the same time, how we complement each other is really important. And, we've heard many analysts in the industry say this, and this scares us, frankly, is when you're basically talking about the transact being the least important part of the entire customer value life cycle, that's a wake-up call. It's important to us, it's important to our partners, but it's not important to the customer. That's merely a means to an end. And what we realized is, especially partners in our ecosystem, I would also say that, one, channel is becoming somewhat of an outdated term in that respect because it's notorious for this linear motion, but we also have labeled partners. And I don't believe there are any longer any partner types. I can tell you the top partners in our ecosystem have already invested in more than 3 different business models. Think about that, meaning the traditional VAR that was a reseller is now investing in advisory services. They're investing in managed offerings, whatever those offerings are, very asset-like. Vendor to vendor is becoming really important. And the last thing I'll highlight, because obviously, we're in this space, is almost 90% of the partner population will have app dev capabilities in the next couple of years. And that was less than 30% a couple years ago. And so that changes. Think about how that's going to change this whole solution building motion in the next few years. So all of this, Amit, has been really the key driving force in helping us evaluate what do we need to change and evolve. And we're staying very laser focused on the customer perspective of that.
Wow, wow. So many different themes going on in there. Let's just quickly summarize while you grab some water as well. It's really the customer focused ecosystem that you talked about, not the linear, but focus on the end customer. And there you touched on a very important concept around account control. I see the audience buzzing here on the right with saying, yeah, that's true. It's no longer one vendor's account. It's our one partner's account. It's really going there. And you touched a little bit on multi-partner there as well. Second thing you touched was fascinating, 30 to 90% jump where partners who were services partners, and I think Mary talked about this as well, they're building IP along on top of it. It's amazing. And 90% of your partners will have app dev capabilities. That's they are creators, not just sellers.
That's right.
Not transactors. They're creators of vision. They're creators of software around you. And in that context, how do you efficiently take an idea to market with them, be partners in that journey? So maybe talk a little bit about that idea of what VMware is doing in that space.
So, I think there's a few critical areas to our strategy where we've shifted because of this. So first is we have focused on really creating a flexible and collaborative business model framework. So what does that mean? We at VMware, and I think Mary highlighted this as well, we don't want to force partners into a way of working. We need to create a way that can enable any partner, every partner, to uniquely differentiate themselves and bring value based on that very niche differentiation or broad. And so we've moved to this business model orientation where, as I highlighted, a partner can be a solution builder, they can be always a reseller, they can be an operator, and everything is not only about creating that flexibility in the programs and the offerings that we bring together, but also collaborative. We have a very keen eye on how do we encourage the multiplier effect of partner to partner engagement, where VMware is really acting as an orchestrator and enabling that to happen versus always being the center of it. And we believe that's very important to help move to this outcome orientation. So that's that is a big shift for us, because it all has to be constructed within a one VMware framework, meaning if you're a partner and you invest in multiple business models, you will benefit from that versus having to operate in different programs and structures, et cetera. The second is, we have had for a number of years master services competencies that have been built around our technologies, and partners have invested a great deal. We're going to continue with that. Where we're doubling down on investment is around use case offerings. So imagine now our shift where partners can align to specific customer use cases that are more solution oriented, cross technology. They can build competencies around that, get very clear go-to-market sales plays, demand generation together, et cetera, but also building the competencies. So it's another way to build competencies and certifications where those use cases can be horizontal or industry, which you talked about earlier as well. And another critical aspect in that we're investing in, that you're obviously very involved in, is how do we get rapid joint innovation and joint solutioning? So some of those use cases will be VMware led. Many use cases will be jointly created, and many use cases will be pure partner led. And so how do we create that co-innovation and joint solutioning where partners have the option to do more bigger workshops at a grander scale, or a self-serve motion that enables partners to, although in this world, quick is a very relative term, but much more quickly be able to build their own unique capabilities and differentiation and find ways to incentivize, be incentivized to deliver those. So that's second piece is use cases. And then the third piece I'll just highlight is around a massive investment, as you know, where we've been really shifting the profitability and the incentives to reward partners along the journey. So not just for the sale, how we've been incentivizing partners for how they deliver true assessments to the customer, proof of value, doing migrations, driving deployment, all different types of stages. But our belief is the more we're helping offset the costs for those partners and also incentives that help connect the partners, we're really truly becoming the enabler for that outcome along the whole life cycle.
Absolutely. No, what a fascinating insight. If you move from a transactional mindset more towards this customer lifecycle mindset, then you align the partner profitability around the lifecycle points of assessment, proof of concepts, of deployment, of adoption, of partnering with other partners along the lifecycle, right? The whole thing then comes well-rounded towards the customer.
Yes, and what's interesting, you bring up a very important word that we all recognize is very important to our joint partners, which is profitability. And in this new world, it actually makes profitability harder because partners have to look at all different capabilities, different phases of the life cycle. It was much easier to calculate profitability in a transact world. And so we're making a significant amount of investments in how do we help partners really capture true visibility, transparency, and predictability so partners can more effectively determine where they want to place investments and the role that they want to play across the life cycle. And while we aim for simple, I think this world that's why we focus on flexible, because that's the key, we believe, to the differentiation more so than, we can be simpler. I don't know that there's any such thing as simple anymore.
Yeah. And Sandy, we've been partners as WorkSpan and VMware, not just vendors, right? Where we are enabling and learning and building things together. So in the customer lifecycle incentives, Tracy Ann Palmer shared her insights with this ecosystem community some time ago. And more recently working on this idea to launch workflow or process with a larger ecosystem of partners. So one question from a WorkSpan standpoint, how have these capabilities helped you at VMware, leapfrog or do some newer things that you were not able to do before?
Sure. I think it's important to note, when you have leaders from, Microsoft has been leading in this area for, many years on the partner ecosystem front. We came in faced with the challenge where we had an incredible technology portfolio. We're known for our technology vision and capabilities. We weren't the easiest to do business with. And we were also, because we were also transactional oriented. So everything for us has been around, and again, similar, echoing a lot of what Mary has said, is the importance of leveraging capabilities that exist out there that our joint partner ecosystems are using. It's bad enough internally within our own companies. We have fragmented systems. Now times that by thousands
Yeah.
and you're trying to unify a sales force across multiple different companies. And so we're trying to find the fastest path to value ultimately. And that's really what we've been centered on, whether that's onboarding, whether that is again on flexibility, access to data. I mean, you name it. And Mary was highlighting earlier, you know, the spreadsheets and all of that. Minimize automation is key. And I think, you know, WorkSpan plays such a critical role in helping us create that in unique ways.
Thank you, Sandy. We've got a few questions here from the audience, so feel free to either raise your hand, ask a question directly, or I can direct them to Sandy. So Christine is asking, how does your organization integrate your product and solution teams with partnering teams?
Oh, great question. That is something we've been working on. I can tell you for the last 2 years, we have this very simple strategy, which is customer first, partner led, outcomes delivered. And the partner led has been a fierce mission of ours. We've done a few things. One, we've aligned partner leaders to the business group so that we are embedding as much as we can. You know, I think it's not unique to VMware. In the tech world, we love to develop the product, launch the product, and then figure out everything after that. In some cases, you know, it's a general comment. We, you know, we're no different necessarily in that way, and we're trying to really switch that, because in many cases, a partner-led mentality gets you thinking about a different go-to-market strategy sometimes altogether. And so we've invested a great deal in that. We've invested in a partner advisory board, which we've kicked off for the first time ever. And the VMware board consists of our CXOs, including our CEO. And we actually just had one for a full day. Our leaders are sitting in. We're sharing our technology roadmaps, and it's creating this really great opportunity to define what's required from a partner point of view in those discussions. And then last is we're really putting in through all of the go-to-market levers, pricing, everything, guiding principles and working principles for where partner needs to be integrated. That in and of itself has been a pretty transformational effort internally to execute.
Massive. There's a question here around how you're doing multi-partner, especially looking at telecom, or focus around your telecom ecosystem question.
Yeah, great question. So particularly on the telecom, you know, on the service provider side, this is where we're really investing in the operator business model. And that operator business model that is traditionally known as, in some cases, telco, it's a managed service provider, et cetera. There's a few things that we're doing there that we have not done in the past. One is, again, joint solutioning and creating joint go-to-market plays. And that having those offers then that are created available through a broader ecosystem is really a critical play for us.
Wow, lovely insights there. I'll ask one last question of you. This is coming from another attendee here, Mangi Kumaraswamy. He's asking, TCV is a traditional way of measuring success with partners in sales. How do you measure business development and co-sell with partnerships at VMware? Has metrics changed as you look at this transformation of partners?
Oh, we're right in the midst of that right now, moving from a TCV model to an ACV model to net retention revenue. And so a lot of the metrics that we're looking at from a partner standpoint, this is why the life cycle becomes really important, is where our partners playing a lead. And ultimately, we didn't touch on it a lot today, but that life cycle, one of the most critical investments and shifts is in customer success. And so joint value, joint net retention from a partner landscape, I think ultimately is going to be a driving force for us. Obviously, ACV is important. That still gets to more of the transaction of what we've, the value of what we've landed. It's more around the other pieces that we're exploring. But that's hard because, as I'm sure everyone on this call appreciates, the systems and the back end offices that have to shift to support new comp plans, new data, new visibility is pretty extensive.
All right, one more last question, Sandy. There's a lot of questions that are coming in as I announced that this is wrapping up. It's asking, I'm just trying to read this. VMware plus hyperscalers like AWS, Microsoft, plus service partners, how are you enabling, or what does that mean to you in terms of multi-partner GTM?
Yeah, so we obviously have very strong partnerships with Microsoft, with AWS, with the Google Cloud. I think it's important to note, with VMware strategy, we want to be, we're the multi-cloud leader, and that's what we are betting on. And that means it's not just AWS, it's not just private cloud. And so where we really think our partners have an opportunity to play is being an all clouds delivery model for our customers and helping them navigate and meet them where they are in this digital transformation. And again, enabling them the flexibility so that for us, it's about enabling customers to be successful in that multi-cloud world. And how do we empower the partners who can and support all of those cloud partnerships today, and will be so in the future.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sandy. There's so many insights there, and I'm thrilled that you shared not just where you are at, but also your learnings. And this might be a really good subject to turn into a blog and a learning blog as we think through the transformations that you're doing.
Well, we definitely don't have a shortage of learning, so thank you for the opportunity to share with the team. I appreciate it.